Let me set the scene. It's 2019. Hololive and Nijisanji are beginning their reign over the VTuber scene in Japan. Sakura Miko, Inugami Korone, Kiryu Coco, and many others from Hololive were so damn popular that even fans in the West began to take notice of this VTubing phenomenon. At this time, there were English-speaking VTubers in existence, like Ironmouse, Zentreya, Melody, Silverveil, and many others. But this was before VShojo and other Western indies' large explosions. But hold on that. We'll get back to that later. For now, let's go back to Hololive and a specific member of Gen 4 who was the start of this incredible story.
I think Hololive owes Coco so fucking much. Oh yeah, right? Because absolutely. She is basically the sole reason why Hololive is as big internationally. Yeah, she's basically the reason why Hololive English exists, right?
Exactly.
Coco was extremely important when talking about the creation of HoloEN, because the story of Hololive EN actually begins before Hololive EN even began. It starts with Kiryu Coco. Coco was the most popular VTuber in the West before the creation of HoloEN. And the reason why Coco in particular was the one who was so popular was because Coco, out of all of the Hololive members at the time, was the only member who could speak English and had any understanding of Western culture and memes at all, which is why she resonated with fans in the West so well. People could actually interact with her in a way that they couldn't with any other member of Hololive, and this is why Western fans fell in love with Coco. Coco, of course, noticed this and took full advantage of this new fan base in which she acquired, and started speaking English quite frequently in her streams. Of course, she's a Japanese native and a Japanese streamer, so that was always her main language, especially at the time with her job in Hololive. But the English-speaking Coco that Western fans loved would come out from time to time.
So, are you like planning to kill yourself or something?
Cover Corporation obviously saw this newfound fanbase Coco established. Cover knew there was opportunity to be had here, and Coco herself pushed this idea to Cover Corp to create an English-speaking group of VTubers. Coco most likely being very confident in their success, if Cover Corp actually decided to pull the trigger and do it. But this was a risky move to enter territory which has never been explored before, at least to such a large audience. Of course, like I said, Coco found success in the West, but does that exactly mean a whole generation or whole group would perform as well? Hell, maybe Coco was perceived in the West so well just because, you know, she's Coco and everybody loves her. Who's to say this EN VTuber group would actually be successful? Of course, now we know how incredibly successful they were and still are today, but at the time, how could they know that outcome? So, Cover Corp had to make a decision. Make a ballsy move that might be successful, or stay in Japan where they have already found incredible success. With the help of Coco, Cover Corporation possibly made a decision that not only changed Hololive, not only changed the VTuber industry, but an executive decision that could have changed the entire internet forever. On September 8th, 2020, Hololive Myth was announced, Hololive's first English-speaking group. Incredible hype was created upon this announcement almost immediately, but even with this initial hype, they could have never anticipated the amount of success that was about to step forwards after their debut on the 12th. Our beloved members of Myth that we all know today being Gawr Gura, Mori Calliope, Takanashi Kiara, Ninome Ina, and Amelia Watson. These 5 individuals are so outrageously talented in all different areas, with many of these individuals being very popular on the internet even before their Hololive personas were created. Cover Corporation knew if this English-speaking group idea worked, these 5 girls would be the best possible candidates to test this idea. And if for some reason these 5 did not perform as well as Cover hoped for, then it just wasn't meant to be, because these 5 girls are the best of the best. I still believe that even now, like 2 years later, we have never seen an EN group as talented as this one. Upon debut, all of them crushed 1 million subscribers in a matter of months. And Gura in particular did it in under a month. Yeah, Gura had 1 million subscribers in a matter of weeks. This incredible feat made Gura the fastest growing VTuber of all time. Well, up until only very recently when she was surpassed by a Nijisanji member named Hayaku Mendenbar Salome, but Salome's incredible growth is a topic for another video. But Gura still stands currently as the most subscribed VTuber of all time. Salome only passed Gura in terms of the speed in which it took to get to 1 million. And while diving into each of the members' insane accomplishments would probably make this video so long that nobody would watch it, I want to do a quick dive on Callie's insane accomplishments. Why Callie specifically, you may be asking? Only for the sole reason that this is my video and Callie is my Oshi. So you're gonna sit there, you're gonna listen, and you're gonna like it. Callie's music career is insanely successful, to say the very least. Let's just say Callie is signed with debatably the largest music label in the world, Universal Music Group, but she is affiliated with Universal Music Japan specifically. She has multiple music videos with not hundreds of thousands of views, not even millions of views, let's try tens of millions of views, and has performed these songs live on stage at her very own concert. Callie was also the second in Holo and third overall to ever hit 2 million subscribers. The only VTubers doing this before Callie would be the queen Kizuna Ai and of course Gawr, as we talked about earlier. Although this statistic could be a little bit wishy-washy on what you exactly consider to be a VTuber, because of course Nux Taku and Pramaru-sama are other VTubers who have hit 2 million subscribers, but for the sake of fairness, I'm only going to include VTubers who have been VTubers for their entire career on the internet. Mori Calliope has also been featured on Rolling Stone magazine and has been featured on the Trash Taste podcast with the boys multiple times. She has also accomplished being the hottest member in Hololive.
Sebi, please stop being a simp!
Okay, Jesus, Kyo, damn. But now you might be thinking, Sebi, is this really it? Listen, I understand now that they're super talented and very cut out for the job and have obviously proved that through their accomplishments. But to create a whole movement in the West like they did, to inspire thousands of people to become VTubers, for each of them to pull hundreds of millions of views per member, I'm sure there has to be more to it, right? The first thing I must go over before we even start, I want to make it clear, even though Myth did have some advantages that helped in their success, this does not discredit them in any regard, and I don't want anybody to even get the impression that it does. So, with that out of the way, this leads me to Myth's first huge advantage. Like I stated before, this was the first time a group of VTubers debuted from a huge company that speaks English. And before you go correcting me in the comments, I am well aware that Tsundere was established before Hololive Myth was created. But that's exactly why I said from a huge company. Hololive was already a huge company and had a very well-known name. It wasn't just because they came from a company, it was because they were from debatably the biggest VTuber company in Japan, Hololive. And with that, they had shoes to fill which have never been filled before. There were so many people who wanted to watch VTubers, but just didn't know it because they weren't exposed to them yet. Which is why Hololive's exposure, plus having these shoes to fill, played a huge role in them becoming as successful as they did. The members of VShojo were actually around at this time too. Remember what I talked about earlier, I said we would get back to that. But this was before VShojo was the absolute monster of a company that it is today. The second thing that played a role in the explosion of Myth was a particular virus, which I do not want to name because I'm worried about how that will affect this video, but you guys know what I'm talking about. People were either inside watching something or just doing nothing. Nobody was in school, so many people lost their jobs, people were just at home. And it was around this time when anime as well started to become more popular in the West. I remember I used to get teased for wearing anime-themed shirts, but around this time in 2020, it felt like the exact opposite. I was getting praised by random strangers for being a weeb, and everyone around me started to like anime out of what feels like absolutely nowhere. So when the pandemic hit, what did all these new weebs go home and do? Did they watch anime? Well, I'm sure some of them did, but a large majority of them probably didn't. Which leads me into the next thing that really played a huge role in Myth's explosion. In 2020, during the peak of the pandemic, anime wasn't doing so hot. Anime was pushed back hard because of the pandemic. Animators couldn't do their jobs efficiently at home, and in the voice acting industry in Japan, they like to have all of the voice actors in the same room together recording. And at this time, that just obviously was not practical. So because of this, there was barely any new anime content. So let me answer that question from earlier. Where did all these weebs go? Well, there's this really cute shark anime girl who's playing horror games and screaming her head off.
Please don't open that door.
Well, what about the smug detective that's playing Apex and absolutely shitting on everybody? I could go on, but that's where most of the weebs went to. Even Giguk made a video about Hololive during this time, even though he strictly makes anime content on the main channel. And the reason for that is nobody gave a shit about anime at this time because everybody was watching Hololive. And a lot of these VTuber fans who discovered Myth during this time are still VTuber degenerates today. Once you get sucked into the rabbit hole, actually, I don't even want to say rabbit hole because this whole VTuber thing is like an abyss or like a black hole or something. But anyways, once you get sucked in, especially if your first VTuber group was as amazing as the Myth members are, I don't even want to ask you how would you get out, because the more important question is why? Why would you want to get out? Don't you like my Reaper?
With hand fan female. Okay, well that was one of the ones. Okay, let's go ahead and put that away. Bye-bye, one hand.
But not only did Myth just create a lot of new VTuber fans, but they also created an inspiration for a lot of people to become VTubers themselves. Before Myth was around, there were EN VTubers in existence, like we talked about earlier, but nowhere even close to the amount that there is today. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of your favorite indie VTubers were inspired by Myth, at least in some way. I guess I don't have any exact proof for this, because I can't just call them up and ask them, but considering how much VTubing in the West skyrocketed after the debut of Myth, I don't think it's unreasonable for me to draw this conclusion. And to any of my other VTuber fans who were around before the debut of Myth, I'm sure you would all agree with me on that point. And honestly, this point does not even just go for indies, but even corpo VTubers from other companies who debuted after Hololive EN was created. I think we can fairly point the finger at Myth for influencing a majority of VTubers in the West. And not only just that in particular, but also for creating the first huge exposure so current day VTuber fans could find out about them in the first place. Without the creation of Myth, would we all be down bad degenerates? Well, I'm not gonna lie to you, maybe, considering that Nijisanji was likely bound to come to the West eventually, even if Hololive didn't do it first. But let's not talk hypotheticals, because in reality, Hololive was the first company to make that risky but extremely important decision to give the West a try. And because that is the reality, Cover Corporation is the company we can point at for creating such an influential movement. And they did so with their amazing first group of English-speaking talent, Hololive Myth. I also think it's extremely important to point out that being the first to come wasn't all positives, because even though it was an incredible opportunity for success, the Myth members felt extreme stress not only from all the expectations, but because they had nobody besides each other. The good thing about becoming a corporate VTuber in the West now, or even today in general, is that likely whatever company you're applying for, if you do end up making it, you'll probably have at least a couple or even multiple senpais you can ask for advice on literally anything that has to do with the job. But even if you were to debut from a new company, or even as an indie VTuber today, you can look at what some of the other successful EN VTubers are doing and figure out some of the things you may need to do to become successful. But the Myth members, they didn't have this. There was nobody else doing exactly what they were doing in a similar circumstance. I suppose you could just make the argument that they could speak to a JP senpai for support, but you have to understand the audience in which they were intended to entertain and appeal to was fundamentally different. And because of that, I'm not quite sure how much advice the Japanese members could have really given them during the era of their debuts. Another thing to remember is not all of the Myth members speak conversational Japanese, so the language barrier was another thing in the way of the Myth members asking a senpai for any sort of advice or comfort. And that's something that nobody will ever understand besides the Myth members. And in a way, I think the 5 of them were kind of alone. But thanks to the help of each other, they were able to debut and overcome virtually everything. No pun intended. But they were able to overcome everything and become the legendary icons that we know them as today. And you may not even realize it now, but when an undeniable fate comes upon us one day, the Myth members will all be remembered as legends for these reasons. And if you don't believe me, just wait and you'll see. Myth was super special. They were the first before many. They were a successful gamble that just so happened to be Cover's best decision they ever made. They created a movement, changed the VTuber industry, created degenerates like myself and many others watching this video, and literally set down the blueprints that would change the internet forever. Without them, a lot of us would have been normal people, and would have been actually useful, functioning human beings in society. But now, after being corrupted with their cuteness, we are all down terrible degens who just give their money to virtual anime girls online.
It's big ups to Sebe. Thank you for the red heart.
Sebe! Hi, Ollie. Hi, Sebe.
Love to see you here on YouTube.
Thank you, Sal. I love being here. It's great.
We all
Hello, my favorite fish. Thank you. Kiryu-san. Thank you for super.
Well, maybe that's just me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate it because a lot of work went into this video. If you guys think I missed anything important, please feel free to add any points that you'd like down in the comment section below. Also, guys, let me know down in the comments, did you guys find out about VTubers because of Hololive Myth? Or maybe another group that literally makes me question my sexuality every day? Or maybe it was something else completely different. I'm really interested, so let me know down in the comment section below. I do read every single comment, so feel free to drop one. But as always, with all this shit being said, I will be seeing you guys in the next video.